Let's just dive straight into it. The reason you're here is because you bought the budget flash and you're looking to get it set up. And that's where I'm coming in to help you get it all set up. First things first, let's talk about everything that you just purchased. You need to get familiar with your new equipment. So let's break things down. First off is your flash. This is super important. This is what provides the light. You probably bought a variation of this. It might not be the same exact one, but this is what gives you the light, gives your food that pop. Next is going to be a variation of the trigger and receiver, the part that mounts to the flash and the part that mounts to your camera. So your camera has the ability to talk to the flash to tell it when to go off, especially when you're shooting with off-camera flash. Next is this holder device thing. I don't know exactly what this thing is called, but it holds your receiver, it also holds your flash, it holds your umbrella, and then this mounts to a stand. Super important, really good unless you want to be holding it the entire time or like jacking it up, some weird prop dealio. This is super important to have. It's a really cheap rig. Cheap device, but it holds all your stuff. Next is your camera. This is probably the most important thing, and it doesn't matter if you have Nikon, Canon, Sony, just make sure that the receivers and the triggers are compatible with your camera. They should always be compatible with the flash because it's just sending a signal to the flash telling it to go off. But it's important that you get a trigger that syncs up with your camera, and it will tell you that when you bought it. I need to find my umbrella. The last thing you bought from the budget flash is the umbrella itself. And I know it's bad luck to open one of these inside, but guess what? It's for photography purposes, possibly for business purposes, that we need to take good pictures of food. So we need umbrellas inside. End of story. First thing you're gonna wanna do is mount the trigger into the hot shoe of your camera, like so. We're gonna power on our trigger and our receiver at the same time. And the most important part about this is making sure the channels are set to the same frequency. You wanna make sure, so I'm on channel 1A currently right now. So you need to make sure the trigger is set to 1A also. So when you start taking pictures, they communicate with each other. So we have our trigger set to our camera. The next thing we wanna do is put our receiver onto our flash, like so. You're gonna twist it down so it's nice and tight on there. It's showing that the receiver is on channel 1A. Our flash is hooked up and we can even power that on right now, that's fine. Next, you're gonna pop the receiver into this holder device so it looks something like this right here. And then last step in getting it set up is putting the umbrella through the hole. Just give me a minute. So you want your flash facing the inside part of the umbrella, and I'll show you when we're set up here what this will look like. Basically what we want to happen is for all this light, you're gonna hit the shutter on your camera. It's gonna trigger the flash to go. It's gonna hit all of this white surface in here, and all of this white is gonna be diffused coming back onto your food. And that's what I love about this setup right here. It's super cheap. So once this is all set up, it's tightened down on your stand. You're gonna put your stand close to your scene, close to your food, so we simulate that window light. Like I said, it's really cheap and simple to set up. Let's get into some of the settings you might need. One of the great things about this trigger and receiver is they come pretty much set up out of the box. So if you ever feel like something's not working, maybe just try to reset to factory, but make sure your channel is synced between the two of them. Make sure it's on the exact same channel and then you should be fine. There's this test button on top where you can actually test it and make sure it's firing okay. And then you can do a couple test shots on your camera to make sure it's working as well. And so I have it set up pretty simply now. It is indeed working. Now for camera settings. So our flash trigger is currently talking to our receiver right now, and we're pretty much ready to go. We have it on our stand. This is where the experimentation, and you play around a little bit with the settings because you're gonna have to adjust the power on your flash, and then you're also gonna have to adjust some settings on your camera as well. So what I like to do is I always start at like a 1/125 shutter, and I usually don't change that at all. It stays pretty constant through the entirety of my shoots. I'm gonna start on like a medium power on the flash, and this is one of the flashes that you actually have to change manually. So this plus minus here will actually change the power level of our flash, how much light is coming out. So like a lower number is gonna have a faster recycle time. It's not gonna take as long to charge back up, but if you're going full power, you might have to wait a little bit in between shots. So I like to start in like the mid-range, find out where I'm at, then I'll adjust the settings on my camera appropriately to achieve the results that I want. My ISO varies anywhere from ISO 100 to 400, depending on how much more light I want into the scene, but I don't wanna get into anything above 400, 640, or 800, because that just introduces more noise and grain into my image, and I don't necessarily want that at all. And there's plenty of power out of this flash to keep your ISOs down. Next is my aperture. This is the one that changes all the time. I'm anywhere from an f4.0 all the way up to an f13, depending on how much depth of field I need in my image. If I'm shooting something overhead, it might be something like an f9 through f13. But if I'm shooting something straight on or at an angle and I really want that isolation, that depth of field, that really shallow depth of field and nice in and out of focus in front and behind my food, then I'll go down to something like f4 through f6.3. So this is the part right now where you're going to experiment with your camera, experiment with the flash distance relative to your food to make sure that you're getting the exact results that you want. This comes down to trial and error. This is how I figured it out, but I'm giving you the exact steps to get set up and rocking and rolling with your new budget flash setup. I sincerely hope this was helpful to you. I kind of wish I had something like this when I first started out. So if you purchased my flash setup, thank you very much. I earn a small commission from those sales, so I really appreciate it. If you have any questions at all, please reach out at Jeb West on all my social media channels, and I'd be happy to help you out.